And then share screen. Hold on, let me see. Need to bring this. Okay, so today we will start with a new unit. So it's regarding various types of file processing. Okay. So there are two topics in this module. So file processing, so various types of file, okay, and data cleaning. Okay, so we first with start with file processing, and previously we already see that a lot of CSV file when we use pandas is that. So we already know this. Okay, for pandas you can call the read CSV is that. CSV is comma separated value file, is that, and then it will automatically give you the data frame, the data frame. Okay, so nothing new there. And not just read the CSV method. You can also call the read table method in pandas. Okay, in pandas. And read table, it also gives you a data frame by default. Okay, and by default, it use what? Use white space. Okay, so not use comma. Okay, if you call the read CSV, it use read table, it use white space. Oh, hold on, let me get all of the files. Hold on, let me stop sharing and bring those files so that we all can see, okay, the various files so that we understand what it means. File processing, and let's see, the first file and then the second file. Let me open all of the files, okay, so that then we can understand. And then I think I already opened that file. And okay, so over here, I open a couple of files. Let me bring the first file, is it? So sharing screen. So first, let's take a look at the file. So this is the first CSV file, is it? And it's separated by comma, is it? It's a pretty simple one, okay? So it's the user CSV file. And then next, let's see, how do I bring the second? I think I need to stop sharing again to bring the second file, okay. I need to bring the second file. So we just kind of get the idea. Where is my, okay, second file. This is the second CSV file, okay, it's the same thing, it's separated by comma, okay. Okay, so then let's go back to here. Okay, so over here we do read table. That, and if you recall the first CSV file, that, and it's separated by comma. That when we do read table, and read table by default, it uses white space to give you a data frame. That then you will see all of this A, B, C, D, and the message, it will be as a single column. Okay, single column. So that's the default case. And you can specify the separator. And if you specify, okay, I'm going to use the comma, then it's similar as read CSV. So it will use the comma to delimiter, okay, to give you the data frame. And for read CSV, is it? And you can also set certain argument, is it? So if you don't want to have the header, is it? Then you just say, okay, header equals none, is it? Then what it gives you, there is no header part. Okay, so that's just some other option. Okay. And for read CSV, is it? You can also have the data frame, so column be certain specific name, is it? You can also name that. So over here it shows, is it? So then each of the column has a name. Okay, and what next one try to show is over here, we have a list, is it? We have the list. And over here, the names, is it? What's the name? The name is, so the name is from this list. Okay, it's from this list. And also it specify, I want to use the message, is it, from this CSV as my index. So then you can also specify index column, this argument as a message. Then you will see the message column basically now is serving as the index, is it? And all of the other columns like what you specify from here, okay? So this is, you can use the name. And you can also do hierarchical, is it? Multi-level indexing. So hierarchical indexing from multiple columns. Okay, so this is the third CSV file. And the index column over here, I said, okay, I specify this two column as the index. And from the result, you can clearly see that this is a hierarchical index. Okay. And let's take a look at the that text file. Okay. Let me see. Okay, I need to find the text file so that we can kind of understand what is that hierarchical. So if you take a look, that hierarchical index is that we have key 1, key 2, and volume 1, volume 2, is it? And within key 1, if you see, and you only have 2 category, is it 1 and 2, is it? And for key 2, then you have A, B, C, D, then you repeat, have A, B, C, D, is it? That's why, okay, because we have, then let's go back. And because the CSV data itself, is it? So the key 1, the key 2 column, the 1 and the 2, they are kind of categorical, is it? So that's why this key 1 as one of the level of index, and the key 2 serves as the inner level of index. Is it? So that's why over here we call it a hierarchical index from multiple columns. Okay, so you can also do this when you do read in file. Okay, and for the read table, what next one try to show is you can also specify the delimiter. For the delimiter, you can also, in this case, it says you can use some space, is it? Some white space. And this is regular expression, is it? So you can also provide some regular expression for your delimiter, Okay, and then it's going to use whatever you specify here to separate the data value so that you get a data frame. So that's what this part try to show. Okay, and what is the next one? Try to show when we do the read CSV, you can also specify, maybe you don't want all of the rows be imported, is it? Then in this case, you can also specify the skip rows. Here it says, okay, the first row, the third row, and the fourth row, you don't want to import, is it? Then it will skip that, okay. Okay, and what is the next one? Try to show how do we handle the missing data? Is it missing data? So over here, that's another CSV file, okay? And here it says by default, pandas use a set of commonly occurring sentinels, okay? It says now or now, okay? So the missing data, is it? And for missing data, when it imports to the data frame, then it will just show as like that or not. That's what, how do we deal with missing data? And let's take a look at this CSV. Okay, the other two CSV file we haven't seen. Okay, let's share the fourth one. This is the fourth one, is it? And if you recall, it did skip some rows, is it? And it only read the comma separated row. For the comment row, it skip, is it? So you can skip row, okay, when you do the CSV import. And then the next one. So for this one over here, if we take a close look, you will see it has some net values. And here it has some missing values. Is it between 6 and 8? There is nothing. Is it? So that's also a null values. Is it? So so the read the CSV, is it? And how do we deal with the missing data? So over here, it's missing data. Missing data over here, it doesn't have any data show, is it? And this is a net values. So then let's go back to our notebook. Then did you see what it shows, is it? So over there, that's a missing data. So it will be filled with net for the data frame. And the other ones also handled as missing data, okay? So this is regarding handling of missing data. And over here it says you can also specify the argument with net values option. Okay, so that it can take a list or set of strings to consider as missing data. Is that considered missing data? So still the same, is it deal with the missing data and then field the missing data with the corresponding net values. And what the next one try to show is you can also specify, okay, the sentinels. Okay, so here we specify the sentinel and we use a dictionary. Okay, Python dictionary format, is it? Okay, we said, okay, message, okay. Then under message, we have both full and net, okay. And under something too, okay. So this is a dictionary, the sentinel. And then with the nav value argument, then you can use the dictionary. Okay, you can provide the dictionary. So then in this case, it will allow you to provide not the default one, but some you specify as nav values, consider as nav values. Then did you see here under the message, is it under message, even full? Previously over here it's full, is it? But now it will consider the full also as nav values, missing values, is it? And under something, the two also be filled with the nav values, filled as missing data. Okay, so over here it's just to show when you have some CSV file, is it? And if there are not just the missing data or the regular nav or null value, there's some other thing you also want them to be considered as missing values when you import as data frame, then you can use some dictionary to provide the list of the nav values, okay, and also specify, you see, under which column is it, what kind of the values, okay, because both message and something, this is column name. Is it a column name? Is it in your CSV file? Okay. Okay, so this just provides more options, okay, to deal with. So this is the first notebook. Okay, then next, let's take a look at the second notebook. The second notebook, the very first thing is regarding reading files. Okay, so here we have the other CSV files. Okay, CSV file. You can also specify the number of rows. Maybe sometimes you don't want to read the complete file. Is it? You want to read a smaller chunk of data. Is it a small chunk? How do we do that? You can use this option, number of rows. Okay, number of rows. And then did you see it will just read those number of rows in, okay. Okay, so this is, and what next one try to show is we can also read as chunk size, okay, as number of rows. So this is another CSV file, and then you just said, okay, I specify the chunk size as 5, okay. And if you do this, when you directly try to read, to see this read CSV result, you will not directly be able to see it. They say it's just some text file reader, is it? So then later on, you need to basically parse, okay? You need to have some way to read it. So you can iterate over the parts of the file. And here it's according the chunk size, okay? So when you do the read CSV, called the read CSV, if you plug in with the chunk size, okay, then you need to do the iterate to iterate through the chunk size. That's basically over here. And what over here it try to show is then regarding whatever you read, is it whatever you read. And from one of the column, is it one of the column, you're going to do value counts, is it value counts. And then we are going to sort in ascending order, is it in ascending order. And then over here it shows us the result of the top 5. Okay, the top 5. So this is regarding the 6 CSV file. So let's take a look at the CSV file. Okay, I haven't, I needed to bring that CSV file so that we can take a look. Okay. and CSV file. So if you take a look at this CSV file, that you can clearly see it's a quite large file. So that's why for this one, we just do some chunk read, chunk size read, and we deal with the last column here. That if you take a look, the last column, just some single letter, that single letter. Okay. So anyway, we have some basic idea about that file, okay? And what we deal with. So we specify the chunk size. So each time, read 5 rows. That's it. Then what we over here, this is total. Some total, now it's a series. It's a series. So what you are going to contribute to this series based on that key column, then you're going to do value counts. Okay, so how many A, how many B, is it? So maybe 10, maybe 9 something, is it? So you just do value counts, is it? And then you have this series formed as a build up, and then you can sort it in ascending order. Okay, so that's just to show sometimes, because sometimes you may have huge file, okay, then in that case you may want to do this kind of batch processing, okay. And what next one try to show is you can also write data, okay, back to CSV file. And then, so here you said, okay, read CSV, and you can also write CSV. To write, you just do the data to CSV so that you can save the result. And then save the result. And when you write, if you don't provide any delimiter as a separator, by default, it's use comma. You can use other delimiter. Is it? So over here is that write to something, but here it's just write not to a file. Is it write to standard output? Is it? So the monitor. Is it? So this is standard output. And you are not going to use comma. I'm going to use this vertical line. Is it? Use vertical line. And for all of the null values, I use null. So you can specify something. And then did you see over here? Yes, it did. It doesn't have comma. It uses vertical line for the delimiter. Is it? So you can also specify, okay. And then next one. And when you write to the file or standard output, is basically generally write to the file, is write to some CSV file. You can also specify if you want to index or header. That here says, okay, I don't want to index and I don't want to have a header. And if you also want to have the name for the column, you can also provide the columns, and then specify with the name of the column. Okay, so that's the CSV. Okay, what the next one try to show is we can also use reader. Okay, CSV also has something called reader. Okay, so then in this case, this open is Python. Okay, it has nothing to do with CSV. It's just a general Python file, open file. Is it? And then you plug in that file object, is it, to CSV's reader. Is it reader? And then you can do kind of line by line read in this case. Okay, and then over here just shows the result. Okay. So let's take a look at that CSV file. Okay, so it just shows us different approaches. And this one, let's take a look at this CSV file. Okay. And if you take a look at this CSV file, it's a pretty simple one. Is it a pretty simple one? But be careful, okay, for A, B, C, it's comma separated. Is it a comma separate? And it's just A, B, C. And then over here for the second line, you have quotation mark. Then you have comma for 1, 2, and then comma, and then quotation mark for 3. Okay, and then for the third line, each 1, 2, 3, it has the quotation mark and then comma. Is it? Okay, so that's regarding the file formatting. And then let's take a look. For the first one, is it? So it's a CSV reader, is it? And then it does line by line read and then it output, is it? So that's what the result is because it's just based on comma, is it? So whatever it get, it will just be displayed, is it? Displayed. So that's it, use the default one, okay? And then next, let's see. For the next one, we open that file, is it still the same? And then we call the reader, is it? And whatever the reader returns, then we send it to the list. Is it? So here, this line is list. And then we had both the header and the value here to retrieve from the first of the line and of the remaining line. So first line gives to header, is it? And all of the remainings gives to the values, okay? And what next one? Okay, so how about let's do this is the first quiz question. And what do we call this? We have the curly brackets. And then within it, we have for and the in. And here we have some variable. Who remembers? What do we call this? Previously, we learned. And if you take a look at the running result, what it is. Who remembers this?
Is it dictionary?
Yeah, this is a dictionary, yes. The result is a dictionary, yes, very good. And but what do we call this part? The curly brackets, and then within it we have some variable and then for in something. What do we call it? Who still remember?
Is it comprehension?
Yes, yeah, it's called, previously what we learned in Python is list or dictionary, compre what? Who still remember the complete name?
Comprehension.
Yes, comprehension. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay. So once again, we see that here, is it? So basically, you build this dictionary, is it, using a list comprehension style? Is it not the regular like a loop? Is it? So this is much more efficient, is it? What we do is, okay, you will, the value is the second line and the third line, is it? You call the zip and plug in with the keyword argument, is it? And not a keyword. You plug in with multiple, is it? The value is multiple arguments, is it? That's what we do, is it? So basically you have second line and the third line, is it? You kind of separate them. And then you zip. Whenever you do zip, it's you pair them together, is it? So you're going to pair the header and the values, is it? And for each of it, you assign it to the key and value pair, is it? That's so here is the key and the value is what? Is a tuple. Is it? Because the tuple is generated from the zip, is it? Okay, so what over here try to show is with the CSV file, you can also call the reader and then do some list and then do some list or dictionary comprehension, is it? Okay, so that's regarding this one. And then next one is interesting. Over here, okay. Over here, if you, we still use that CSV file, is it? And here it's just for CSV, okay. For CSV, you can also define some dialect, okay, for CSV. So here basically it's create some class, subclass from CSV's dialect class. And then it define some line terminator, okay, use slash n, delimiter that's going to use semicolon, not a colon, okay. You're going to override and quote. So this is for quotation character. You're going to use a double quotation, and the quoting is that's going to use the minimal, okay, the minimal. Okay, then over here, I said, okay, I'm going to call the reader, is it? And the dialect, I'm going to use whatever the dialect I just defined, is it just defined? And then I'm going to display it, is it display it? And if you take a look at the result, this time, did you see ABC going to be considered as a single object? Is it versus previously you have A and then you have B and then you have C. Is it? So these two are different. Is it? This time A, B, C group together. Is it group together? And if you remember the second one, what we have, let's first clear the result. Go back to take a look at the original file. Okay. This one, okay. 7. If you take a look, the original file, so ABC, no quotation mark, just a comma, is it? And the 1 and the 2, you have comma, but you have double quotation, is it? And then comma, and 3, you have quotation again, is it? And for the last one, you have quotation, 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 you have comma, is it? Okay, so anyway, so that's this one. And then let's take a look. What the output is, okay. The output, you recall for the first one, it's just ABC, is it? And this time it will, the output will have all of them together as a single item, is it? For the second one, and why it is? Because the delimiter is semicolon, not a comma, is it? That's why it will not extract a single ABC out. It will consider all of them together, is it? Unless in your original file, you have ABC like this, then it will give you the result as A, and then B, and then C. Okay, so be careful here. And for the second one, what it has 1, 2, is it? And then 3, something looks like this. And if you take a look at the result, did you see the double quotation for 3 still exists, but for 1, 2, it's not. And everything will be considered as a single. So it strip out this double quotation, and then we'll consider everything as a single item. Is it? Let's go back to the semicolon again. Is it? Because it use semicolon, and there is no semicolon, it's all comma. So it doesn't meet the delimiter. Is it? But it strip off the first quotation mark. Why? Because here it says quotation. Is it? That is the quotation mark. So when you get the first pair of quotation will be stripped off. Okay, when you use this dialect, whatever you defined, is it? And the same thing for the third one, is it? Third one it has 1, 2, and 3, is it? So it will take the first quotation mark off and then consider all of it as a single item. Okay, so what here try to show, because with data analysis, the data you collect from the internet is much, it may have all sorts of formatting, is it? So a lot of time you may need to do a lot of data cleaning work, is it? So you can specify, is it? And later on, after you cleaning data, then you can import data as data frame, then do some processing, is it? And model prediction something, is it? So this just shows you can also use CSV dialect. Okay, then you can override it and define your own dialect and then do some processing. Okay. So that's what this one tried to show, okay? And for CSV, you can also write, is it? So you can also call CSV writer, is it? And for the writer, you can also specify your own way for the dialect, is it dialect? So here it's just try to show, okay, the dialect, is it? And it write row, is it? And it provides some, and over here, the last one is that semicolon, is it semicolon? And it's going to use that you define dialect. And this time the data is going to be saved in my data.csv file, is it? So let's take a look what the file looks like. My data CSV. Let's open that file. And then let's share that file. Okay. This is a file that you write. This is the part that you write back to the file. Is it? Did you see for the semicolon? So it's automatically add a semicolon back. Is it because you specify? Is it? And for the semicolon you specify, it add the quotation mark. Does it add a quotation mark? That's because that is because what we defined. Is it? We defined the delimiter as semicolon and the quotation mark as double quotation. Is it? And we also said we are going to use minimal quote. Is it minimal quote? Minimal quote, when you call the right row, it says it will quote fields. Okay, only if they contain the delimiter, because that's a delimiter. Is it? So you don't want that be part as delimiter. It's a quotation. Is it? So that's why when you write it back, it's add the quotation mark. Is it? all the quote character. Okay, so that's what this quote minimum means. Okay, so here it just shows multiple approaches. Okay, and what the last one try to show is here I also I open the file, etc., and I call the reader, CSV reader. Okay, I'm going to read the CSV file. And the delimiter is just going to be space. Okay, space. And the quotation mark is going to be what? It's going to be the vertical line this time. Okay, then when we see the result, that's what we will see. Okay, so let's get back. So you can clearly say, okay, so here all same, but here you have space. Is it here you have space, but they are not separated by the delimiter. Is it why it's not? So let's take a look at the result. This is the X, so I need to open that file, EGG. Okay, that file, and then let me share this file. Okay, if you take a look at this file, if you take a closer look at this file, did you see this file not separated by comma, it's by the default space. Is it default space? And then you have the vertical line. Is it? And the vertical line here, we say it serves as a quotation mark. Is it? Because it's a quotation, so that's why this space won't be served as delimiter. Is it? All the space within the quotation mark won't be served as the delimiter. It's part of your quotation. Is it? Okay, so let's go back to the file. Okay, so that's why did you see the result? Otherwise, each span is a single item, is it? But the space between baked beans, it's considered as part of the quotation mark, is it? Okay, so a lot of time you need to be careful. Okay, when you scraping data from the internet, the file may be kind of comprehensive, is it? So then you need to deal with it. Okay, then let's go back to the third notebook. The third one deals with JSON file. Okay, and right now, like a lot of API, is it the backend? When you do internet, when you do the web programming, is it the backend provide API? Is it the API will export data to front end? Is it? And normally when it export to the front end, it's JSON formatting. Is it? And the JSON represented as within the curly brackets. Okay, it's a key value pair. Key value pair. Is it? It's quite helpful. Is it? And the value part can be a lot of stuff. In this case, it's a string. And in this case, it's what? It's an array. Is it an array? And in this case, it's what? It's an array. So this is a JSON array. This is an array of JSON object. Is it array of JSON? Because within it you have curly brackets again. Is it? So anyway, so this is some JSON. I define it as, so the triple quotation mark means you can do kind of documentation, and multiple line, etc. So this is multiple line strings, etc. Okay, so anyway, it's some JSON, is it? Then you just, for JSON, you need to import JSON package. Then you call the loads and load the string here, is it? And you can see what you will get. It's some JSON objects, is it? And you can also get the JSON object, convert JSON object back to JSON, is it? So here it shows. Okay, so anyway, so from the JSON object, then you can create data frame. So what over here, I'm going to use the sibling key value pair. Is it create some data frame, and the column going to be name and age. Here it just shows you import, what you import is JSON data. Is it? Then because for pandas and also previous unit, what we learned, the plotting, is it? And we need to deal with data frame, is it, or series, is it? So then you still need to convert them to data frame. So here just shows you can extract some of the key value part from JSON object, is it, and convert it to data frame, okay? So here is a way. And you can also read the JSON. Okay, so here we have a JSON file. Okay, and you read JSON, and it's already aligned pretty well as data frame, so you can directly get data frame. So this is a data frame, okay? And we can take a look at that JSON file, okay? Example JSON, so let's example JSON. And do you see it's a, so here it shows, is it? So it's an array of JSON objects. So it's an array of JSON objects, is it? So, and it's already aligned pretty well. Is it? So that's why when you call the read JSON, is it, you directly get the data frame. Data frame. So here's what it shows. And you can also write a data frame back to JSON. Okay, back to JSON. And if you don't do the specify the option to write to JSON, it will display as a single JSON objects, is it multiple hierarchical kind of JSON object. But you can also specify the orient as records. Then what you will have is an array of JSON objects. Okay, so because a lot of times that's also quite useful, is it? So when you deal with API, okay, you read in and write back. Okay, so this is regarding JSON file processing. So I think that's all for today, okay? And